Hello, my name's Jon Sutton. I'm an English and Spanish qualified lawyer with the Cotta Law at their Coen office. I thought to talk to you today about some legal developments during the coronavirus shutdown and some of the things that I've seen crop up on social media, which I thought I would clarify. First thing I want to talk about is residency. I know there's quite a lot of people from comments I've seen on social media that are quite concerned about getting an application in for residency. As you all probably know, at the moment, the national police stations where the residency applications are made are closed and are not taking any appointments. I spoke to the British consulate yesterday, and they've told me that there aren't any appointments going to be given for the foreseeable future, and there's no date for restarting, notwithstanding the fact that we're coming out of the lockdown, hopefully 10th of May if it isn't extended. The same applies to the TIE, which is the card that British people are going to have to apply for by the end of the year. There's no news on how we're going to have to apply for that and whether that's going to be extended. The only thing that I can recommend, to be honest, is keep an eye on the British Embassy Facebook page, Brits in Spain, which is really useful and good place for getting up-to-date information. So as things change, that's the place to have a look. Another good place to go for information is the Spanish government website La Moncloa. That's here, and they do have a page in English. If you go to lamoncloa.gov.es and then lang en, that's the English language part of the website. It's really useful. One of the positive developments in respect of applications, if the lockdown carries on for any length of time, is the possibility that your lawyer can apply for residency or NIEs online. Now, this is very much on the drawing board in terms of the Colegio de Abogados are speaking to the Ministry of the Interior to develop a way that that can be done and what documentation will be needed. And I suppose it's going to depend on how long the shutdown goes on for. Next thing I want to talk about is taxes. In Spain, as you probably know, there's three main types of taxes. There's national taxes, regional taxes, and local taxes. So no shortage of taxes in Spain. The main national tax that you would normally think about as income tax. And in terms of income tax, there's no automatic extension for paying that we're certainly not going to be let off from paying it. You can, under certain circumstances, apply for an extension of up to 6 months. So the best thing to do is to speak to your gestor accountant and see if you qualify for that, what you have to do to apply for it. Regional taxes include transmission taxes if you have bought a house, or succession tax. These are, as I mentioned, are regional, so I can only talk about Andalusia. But in Andalusia, they have given a 3-month extension for the declaration and payment of these taxes. I imagine if the lockdown continues for a length of time, that 3 months will be extended even further. In respect of local taxes, the main one that you think about is your town hall rates, or EB. Now that's going to depend on your ayuntamiento, your local authority. In Malaga province, a lot of the local authorities deal with the EB through patronato, like this one. And in respect of patronato, they've given a 1-month extension for paying it, and that's likely to be extended further if the lockdown carries on. Another really useful thing, if you do get your bill from patronato, is that you can pay this online quite easily. Because at the moment it's very difficult to get to the bank, obviously. On the Patronato bill, there's a little QR code here. If you have a QR reader on your phone, point that at the code, and that will take you straight to a payment page where you can pay by card. So that's really, really useful. Another thing I was going to talk about is compraventa. That's the house purchasing. Now, my colleague Vera has given a full talk on this in much more detail. But basically, if you're in the middle of buying a house at the moment, it's very difficult to do the completion at the notary. The notary will only allow urgent signings. That does include signings where there is a deadline in the contract that's about to expire, or where you have a mortgage offer that's about to expire. In both those circumstances, you should be able to complete. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. But as I say, go and have a look at Vera's talk, and that's covered in much more detail. Next thing I was going to talk about is courts and litigation. At the moment, by and large, the courts are closed, other than for serious criminal cases and other urgent or very important matters. You can still start certain legal proceedings. Some are stopped. Eviction proceedings are stopped completely for anyone who has defaulted on the rent during the shutdown, but all of the proceedings can be started. However, nothing is going to happen to them for until the end of the shutdown, so they'll just go in a pile. So to be honest, I'd probably advise waiting before you start anything. The next thing I want to talk about, and it's not a very pleasant subject, is wills. It's not pleasant, but it's important, and not surprisingly, everyone's a little bit more worried. For that reason, the demand for wills has gone up. In fact, in the UK, the Law Society is saying that the demand for wills has gone up by 60%. Now, as I mentioned, the notaries aren't doing anything about urgent signings. So in Spain, what can we do if we really want to make a will? Well, two options really, none of which are ideal. The first is that you, under Spanish law, can do a holographic will. That's a handwritten will signed in front of at least 2 witnesses. It can be written in your own language. It's not ideal because in the event that somebody passes away, the process for dealing with that will is quite complicated, and it involves an application in front of a judge to prove its validity. The other possibility is an English will, which an English person can do to cover all of their assets, including Spanish assets. That can be signed in front of any 2 witnesses and doesn't need to be signed at a notary. Again, that's only if absolutely necessary. My advice would always be to make a Spanish will in normal circumstances for Spanish assets and an English will for English assets, but it's something that you can do if you feel it's absolutely necessary. Finally, I just want to talk about some general updates that relate to the current lockdown situation, which most people will have kept abreast with. I'm sure everybody knows that parents can now go out with their children. One adult can go out with up to 3 children. You can't go out as a couple with your children. I'm sure parents are just glad to get any excuse to take the children out of the house, because it must have been very difficult for them over the last 6 weeks or so. As from next Saturday, all of us can go out to exercise. If you're like me, after 6 weeks in the house, I think we're all in need of a little bit of exercise, so that's very welcome. And in theory, the home confinement is going to end on the 10th of May as things stand. There hasn't been extended. I haven't seen any proposals so far that it's going to be extended. So fingers crossed, this will be coming to an end on the 10th of May. If you live in Andalusia, there is even talk that the bars will be opening on the 25th of May. Well, let's see. It's a proposal. I'm sure there will be discussions between the Junta de Andalucía and the Spanish government, and we'll see what happens. If you have any questions in relation to anything that I've said, feel free to email me at jonsutton@cottalaw.net, and we have a website too, cottalaw.com, where there's a very useful blog which contains all the information that you should need. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope you all stay safe and keep well.